back. So, and this was one of the first stories I ever learned from Rebbe Aryeh Hirschfeld, and it's about a storyteller. So, what could be better, right? There was once a Hasidic storyteller named Ruvain, and this story is actually based on a real storyteller, Ruvain Gold. Now, he was a storyteller, but if you met him in the street, you would never know he was a storyteller. He was very shy, quiet, and he almost stuttered when he spoke. But when he began to tell a story, it was as if something melted inside him, and you could just see the words flowing in and through him, and the words were like a rope that pulled the listeners into the story. Now, Ruvain would get so involved in the story when he told it that he would laugh and cry right along with the characters in the story, and so would the audience. Now, most storytellers have a lot of stories that they tell. I do. It's called a repertoire, but not Ruvain. He only had a few stories that he told over and over again, and he said, I only tell stories that make my heart sing. And if you saw him tell a story, you could feel that heart, you could hear it sing. Now, one day, he was asked to tell a story in a little shul, just like the Havurah. And this is the story that he told. A young boy, a yeshiva bocha, he was supposed to be studying Torah and text and scripture every day. But he didn't want to. All he wanted to do was play, and he totally ignored his studies, much to his parents' consternation. And they tried everything to get him to study. They tried bribing him with toys, but he just played with the toys. They tried taking away all the toys. But then he just stared out the window. I think, oh, there we go. Okay. He just stared out the window. He wouldn't study. And finally, his parents were so upset, they decided to take him to the great rabbi of Karliner, who was visiting nearby. Now, a lot of people came to see the great visiting rabbi, and the boy and his parents stood in a long line, and the little boy trembled because he could see at the end of that long line a very tall, stern-looking rabbi. And as they got closer and closer, he trembled more. And when it was finally their turn, he listened as his parents explained what a vexation he had been. And then the rabbi opened the door to his study, and he said to the parents, "Leave your boy with me. I'll teach him a thing or two." And he brought the boy into his study. He closed the door. And then he opened up his arms and very, very gently drew that young boy to his heart. And he held him there for a long time. And the little boy could feel nothing but the beating of the rabbi's heart and nothing else for a long time. And then, when it was time for his parents to come back, the rabbi let go, opened the door to the study, and he said to his parents, "Take your boy. I've taught him something. I've taught him a lesson he won't soon forget." And indeed, that boy grew up to be a very wise and compassionate teacher of the Torah. And he always said that he learned everything there was to know about the Torah on that day when the rabbi held him to his heart. Now, when Reuven had finished telling that story, something very odd happened. One of the women in the audience asked him to tell the story again. The same story. Now, don't worry, I won't do it. But Reuven agreed, and he told the same exact story, almost word for word again. And when he was done, everyone was puzzled because they all agreed that even though they'd heard the same story twice, each time it had seemed totally different. And one of them went up to the rabbi and said, "Oh, wise rabbi, I don't get it. How is it that the first time I heard the story, I felt like I was hearing it in my father's voice? But the second time, it felt like I was being held in my mother's arms. How do you explain that?" And the rabbi said, "Well, for Reuven, the words of the story don't really have any meaning. The words are like notes of music that guide him through the story. And every time he tells it, he discovers a new music to tell it by. And when that woman asked him to tell it again, he created a totally new symphony to tell it by, because some listeners have the power to open mouths. For Reuven, the words of the story don't matter at all. The only thing that matters is the feeling. The only thing that matters is the spirit of the story. And so may we all be present together and be blessed to hold each other to our hearts. Good Shabbos.